Good evening, everybody. Welcome to OL Nation Session 5. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for logging on once again. We are really happy that you are here to join this special session on entrepreneurship. We have a lineup of fantastic entrepreneurs from across the years, from the 50s right up to 1999. We're going to share very good thoughts, very good ideas, their concepts with you. That we will have the headmaster, Mr. Nair, on in a second. And here he comes. Mr. Nair, welcome to OL Nation Session 5. Thank you as always for joining us. And please unmute yourself. And we are happy to have you here and listen to your comments and suggestions on how we can make things better and contribute to our lovely school.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Rohan Shetty. First of all, Oil Nation is going on very well. This is the fifth session, and there is a galaxy of speakers, panelists there. So I'm also waiting to listen to them and learn something from their journey. Before that, some brief update on what's happening in Lawrence. Right now, as you know, the whole country is facing the same situation, COVID-19. The school is closed, but our schooling is going on. Online classes are going on, and half-yearly examination, we call it CA2, is almost done, and another 1 week to 10 days, entire assessment will be over, and the students will be getting a small break of 2 weeks. And by and large, situation here in Ooty is comparatively better. The COVID patients numbers are going down, and generally our campus and our campus residents are safe and sound. We are waiting from the government to clearance. Some of the states like Uttarakhand and Himachal and they have already decided to reopen the school on a staggered way from the end of November, that is next month. And we are also waiting till end of this month. There is nothing much as such. Maybe in November or maybe in December, Tamil Nadu state also will come out with some solution, some program of reopening the school in a staggered way. And definitely the school may not open full-fledged. It may be senior classes on, and then board classes, it will be like that. And our students, last year's batch, 2020 batch, most of the children have got a good placement overseas, as well as in Indian universities, DUs and Saviors, etc. So it's going on well. And the present class 12th, their exams generally is in March. Now CBSE has reduced the curriculum, the course, and there is a possibility of the examination getting postponed. It may not be in March, it may be in April or May. That's going to make a lot of change in our annual calendar, and still we are waiting for a confirmation from the CBSE board. Meantime, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they have already given us a SOP on how to reopen the school, and just waiting for the state government decision. And let's hope maybe in a staggered way, November, end of November or December, things may come. School will be reopening partially. However, this unpredictable situation is causing a lot of stress and strain for a lot of us, but we have to wait and see. We are the only one who is suffering. The whole world is suffering.
Yes.
And this will have a cascading effect in various activities in the school, including founders and everything. Let's wait and see. It's a part of the life.
Okay. Thank you.
Never give in, and
never given. Yes, never given. Absolutely, never given. And I do hope you hang around and listen to all our lovely speakers. And once again, thank you for being here with us. And we wish you and the team at Lovedale all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So everybody, and now we have, here we go. Welcome, Karthik. You need to unmute yourself. I think you logged in and logged on off again, but once again, welcome, Karthik. Karthik is an alumni from the batch of 1984. He's based in Chennai, and he's actually a third-generation entrepreneur focusing on alternative medicine, homeopathy. The company is Bahola, and Karthik is going to talk to us about the Old Lawrencian Association's perspective on this session. Welcome, Karthik.
Hello, Rohan. Good evening. A warm welcome to all the OLs who are here online today, and to those who will be watching this when time permits. I'm sure most OLs will agree that when we step foot on Lovedale soil and smell that clean, fresh air, there's one thought that comes to us. That is, I'm home. Lawrence has been a home away from home, a home that we all love so much. OLs have become extended family. The OLA is here to help, support, and guide OLs. We also love to get together, socialize, and have fun. We bring old friends together, make new friends, and walk down memory lane. Taking a cue from Samir Sood's intro for this event, why we do what we do, well, at some point of time, we've always reached out to OLs for support, for advice, or even just for an evening of laughs, and we have never been disappointed. By serving on the OLA board or the committee, or helping out with the OLA events, it is our way of giving back to the OL community or to school. And hopefully we inspire younger OLs to pay it forward. The OLA has been working on to improve the digital connect. The one important area that we would like to enhance is the mentoring of younger OLs. We have a great repository of knowledge amongst the OLs, and if you want to be a mentor for the younger OLs, please email us at olalovedale@gmail.com. I repeat, olalovedale@gmail.com with your name and your field of expertise. We are what we are today by the one sentence that drives us: never give in. Enjoy this event, and we look forward to seeing you all back again at the next OLA assembly on the 14th of November at 5 p.m.
Thank you for that, Karthik. I think we've lost your signal once more, but the message has been passed. Thank you once again for coming here and participating. I will now hand over to Kalpana Kuttaiah, a very able and very talented architect who's also our co-host. She will take on and take over. Welcome, Kalpana.
Thank you very much, Rohan. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. I hope you all enjoyed this session. Let me start first with a housekeeping point. If you've logged in through the webinar, there should be a Q&A question tab at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to post your questions. Kindly tell us who you want to address the question to, so we make sure the moderator gets the question answered for you. If you have logged in via YouTube or Facebook, please kind of post your questions, and we have volunteers who will pick it up and pass it on to the moderator. So in our preparation for this month's event, it has given me tremendous insight on what it means to be a person gifted with passion, vision, and mission to make a difference. And I hope you experience that for yourself this evening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator for the session, Captain Arjun Nair, with Smero House, batch of 1975, who for over 45 years has a wide-ranging career with an extraordinary range of experiences and interests. For 18 years, he has been a Merchant Navy mariner and captain. Subsequently, Arjun has been a consultant and a troubleshooter to maritime industry, a lecturer at Maritime Law Institutes, a national trainer for water tractors, a board member of Madras and Wales universities, an entrepreneur, having acquired a customs broking company and divesting in 10 years later, a consultant in maritime law. As a side note, he earned this postgraduate diploma when he was in his 50s, a speaker, a moderator, and a founder of a microfinance company in Talash, India, which helps small entrepreneurs. Interestingly, he has an OL partner. And Alchi Kitchen, a well-known restaurant in Leh, which was started by a young Ladakhi lady, is just one of its success stories. He's currently a managing director at Sea Sky Shipping Consulting. He's also a mentor and an industry leader, including a managing director and another director. His professional activities and hobbies, his non-professional activities and hobbies is being a consumer activist, an avid golfer, and my personal favorite, a wine and malt connoisseur, and including being and a grandfather to a 7-year-old girl. Thanks, Arjun. Please unmute your mic and take it away.
Good evening. Today, we are going to be spanning 40 years of people who passed out of school from 1959 to 1999. While it's both a privilege and an honor to be moderating such talented and gifted panelists, I would like to welcome the 4 of you on board my ship and join me on a short voyage of discovery of entrepreneurship as experienced by you. We shall navigate through calms and storms, glorious sunrises and disappointing sunsets as I attempt to get you all safely across to our destination in 90 odd minutes. I'm going to start with the youngest on the block. Mr. What's his name? Abhishek Mohan. Will you please bring Abhishek on board?
Hi, Captain.
Abhishek, I just love that shirt you're wearing. You know, it's something that I wish I would have the guts to wear sometime in my life.
Oh,
but sorry. So Abhishek, you've been part of the sunrise industry your whole career. Over the last 15 years, you've been part of the online games, data security, venture builder, and fintech space, and seen ventures go from seed to public listing across Southeast Asia and Japan. That's what we're interested in. You're currently focused on your venture Hempstreet, which we shall discuss and explain to us during our conversation that will follow. He also wears a second hat as the co-founder of T9L Labs, Technology 9 Labs, which is the first startup studio in India with a portfolio of 30 startups. He states that T9L is on track to work with 120 startups over the next 5 years. Let's hear more from Abhishek, who calls himself a tech. Your father, he was a naval officer. Your mother
yes.
was a school teacher. You studied economics in Mumbai and an MBA from Manila at the Asian Institute of Technology, where you currently reside. I know very busy resume. You were a very restless soul in your initial youth, who was not just gathering skills and knowledge along the path, but also filled with passion and belief. The longest stint in your 15 years of work was with one company. Can you tell us what excited you at Exeter to complete over 4 years? And did that excitement lead you to the current path?
Well, yeah, Exciter was an interesting story. I met the venture capitalist that invested in a small Danish company called Exciter. We met at a house party, and me and a really good friend of mine, in typical fashion, he was wearing a Louis Vuitton belt with a huge buckle. So we said, let's mess with this guy, and we got talking, and he told me about this company, and I told him, you're not going to make $1 billion selling mobile security solutions in Denmark. Let me build Asia for you. And we negotiated over 4 months. I was employee number 1 in Asia, and eventually it was essentially greenfield. So I built Asia. In a year and a half, we had more revenue than the rest of the world combined. And eventually we sold it to our Japanese partners. I did a bit of a handover, and then once it kind of became a big company project, I got bored, and that's kind of been most of my life. The moment things, I don't like working for extremely large companies unless, now if I'm building a company myself, and then I wouldn't mind working for a large company, but working in a company that's layered where, there's a massive reporting structure, that's not something that interests me.
Thanks a lot. Does that little funny image kind of represent what you do?
Well, that's what we try to sell.
Well, I'm gonna now invite Atul Veer, who's not just a classmate of mine, but also a big time, well-known entrepreneur. I'm going to call him on the screen. I'm sure he's already there. So let me introduce Atul Veer of Aravalli, 1975. We call him the underdog thinker, and you'll know why. Atul Veer is a hands-on CEO, an inventor, an author, an entrepreneur committed to excellence and innovation. He's lived on 4 continents, making his way from India, the US, and via Europe and Africa, where he founded his company in 1991 in Houston. Equator Advanced Appliances designs and markets a full range of innovative FMCG appliances. Over 30 years, he has grown Equator into a leading appliance company with interests in the US, Canada, Europe, China, and now more recently in India. Equator has been listed 3 times in the top 100 fastest growing companies in Houston, and their products have been featured on HGTV, Fortune, Popular Mechanics, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal. Is anything left? Atul holds 18 patents in appliance technology, and his award-winning products are sold in the home, art, and green markets. His education includes postgraduate degrees in business and accounting. His include playing tennis, cooking, and even playing the sitar. Maybe it was Pagi. His recently released book, Underdog Theory, shares his entrepreneurial journey and key lessons for business leaders. Welcome, Atul Veer, to this session. Atul, you are also the son of a naval officer, so that makes us 3 naval brats that include me on this show. You schooled at Lovedale. What did you discuss at the dinner table at home? I recall meeting you in Pune when you were in college, and you were busy thinking around here and there. But you have clarity of vision. You always said to me, I'm going to go to Africa. I'm going to go to West Africa. That's where you make money. I could never understand the age of 18 and 19. He had such clarity. And I remember going to West in around 1980, in the early days on my ships where there was piracy, and there were friends of mine, shipmates who went ashore in Lagos and came back without their clothes, and I would think, my God, is Atul here? What is he up to? How does your background of the naval officer, discussions at the dinner table, explain the transition to entrepreneurship, Atul?
Thank you, Arjun. That's a very good introduction. And hello, everyone. I think, of course, all of us went to Lovedale and we have a similar background, and we had order and discipline in school, but we were always exposed, I guess, coming from a naval family, into travel and adventure and going overseas. I guess the first seeds of Africa was sown when I was in prep school, and I was in Jamuna House, and my housemaster, Mr. Raghavan, used to read us stories which were from King Solomon's Mines. And that used to be the nightly bedtime stories for all of us, and students from other dorms used to come to listen to him. And so those were actually the first seeds of adventure, how I got interested in Africa. And I was always in search for King Solomon's Mines, which was a very mythical story. Maybe there's some truth to it too, but it was a best-selling story about 100 years ago. And, you know, about this person who went to Africa looking for King Solomon's Mines and all the adventures they had on the way. So it seemed like something that I should follow, and Africa was always on the back of my mind, but I never knew how to get there. And when I finished my studies and I got a job offer to go there, I jumped at the opportunity, as opposed to, those were the days of the brain drain, and a lot of people were looking for opportunities overseas, and many of us looked for more opportunities, and I think that's where my opportunity came. Needless to say, it did take me some time to get used to Africa. It took me about 3 years actually. But once I got it, I understood what it took to build relationships with people and how to understand them. So much so, I was in Africa for about 7 or 8 years, and they almost appointed me a chief of one of the towns over there because I was so embedded in that society.
So, how do you explain your transition from naval officer's son to this entrepreneur and Africa?
Well, I was working for this British company that did import and export, and they had a lot of big projects in Africa. And I was given a key role in the management. I actually went to investigate a fraud over there. And within the first few months, the senior person and me, I was just 25 years old at that time. And we discovered this fraud and we put the entire management in jail. So two of us were given this task of temporarily running this company. And I actually got out of my profession, which is accounting and investigations and audit, and learned about management and operations and port operations and international business. And after 6 months or so, they offered me a permanent position to run one of the divisions. And that got me interested in actually getting out of the narrow field which I was in and getting more into becoming an entrepreneur. And I rose through the ranks and, became a senior person. What actually got me into entrepreneurship was the mistakes that my boss made. And I realized that he was a very wealthy person, but also a very arrogant person. He believed only in himself, and the advice that some of us key managers were giving him, he did not take that. And that led to the downfall of his company. It so happened that the company went down. I had to make a new start in America, and I couldn't get a job here. And then I decided, okay, since I thought I knew a lot, and I would just start my own business, but I would not make the same mistakes that my ex-boss had made. Needless to say, I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, and now I realize I really did not know anything 30 years ago.
Thanks, Atul. That's a nice your journey, a beginning now by Samir Sood, who would have been very early 1987 from the Silicon Valley and giving to India. Samir is the founder of Venture Highway. He has, during his evolution as a venture capitalist, worked on forge and drop stampings, family parts manufacturing business, which was established in 1960. Sharpened his various skills with stints at Lehman Brothers, Microsoft, and Cisco, while further educating in the USA. He Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University, and also an MBA from the Booth School of Business, University of Chicago. After Cisco, Samir was head M&A, mergers and acquisitions.
Arjun, you have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I think I went on and off. So he was the head of M&A and investments in South Asia and Australia for Google. In that capacity, he led Google's investments in several first-time seed stage funds in India, including Erasmic, Song, Seed Fund, and Venture East, Telnet. Samir was also part of the team that coordinated with the acquisition of AdMob. I'm looking forward to us knowing him better through our conversation on this platform over the course of this session. Before getting onto your tech highway, once again, as in the case of Abhi, I noticed a restless soul. This is only from your CV and job resume. Analyst at Lehman, stints in the family business, between corporate experiences at Microsoft and Cisco. But I need to ask you, what did you enjoy most at Google, where you spent 4 long years? Was it free food in the cafeteria? Was it flexible working hours? Was it the cool ambience? Or did it inspire you to think differently, break shackles, and create your own path, or should I say, your own highway?
Captain, thank you for the very grand introduction. I appreciate it. Starting with Google, my boss told me the first day I joined, he said, Samir, do not get used to the food at Google, because if you do, you'll never leave the company. And I actually realized that once I got in, they had 117 different SKUs of various drinks on campus. This is just the drinks. Forget about the farm to fork, fresh food that was made every day. So the first thing I realized was that the food was temporary and that I would eventually go and do something of my own. And that is what Venture Highway was. Along the way, I realized a few things. One is how to build for the planet. You know, anything and everything that we did in tech, in Google, Microsoft, or Cisco, we had to take into account building for billions of people, building for scale. And I realized the power of tech, having worked in Silicon Valley. Having said that, it's really easy when you have those kinds of resources working in very, very large businesses. My family business was a different experience where, although I was running the business, it was a much smaller setup. And I left the free food and I unlearned the MBA and I went from the free food cafeterias to factories in 4 locations in India. For me, I think that was the biggest learning experience of my life. When you try and build something, it is very difficult. And what I also realized along the way was that I didn't like to do just one thing. And venture is dealing with many different ideas, many different entrepreneurs. I've been investing for 10 years and I've been running Venture Highway as a seed stage technology investment fund for about 5. So I think I found my calling.
Thank you, Samir, for that introduction of what Google did to you and what it made you. I presume you're still on a diet and connecting more with purpose rather than food. And I just want to know, does this funny image basically reflect what you do?
I think it reflects more what we, with the entrepreneurs, do, because hats off to my entrepreneurs. Their resilience, their hard work is unparalleled.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Now, I'm going to bring in the senior most gentleman who passed out of school in 1959, M.A. Alagappan, who has a legacy to nurture and to grow. Good evening, Algie, as he is better known. He's an inheritor of legacy that he, along with others, nurtured and grew. He has a bachelor's degree from Vivekananda College, Chennai, and a management diploma from Aston University, UK. He started his professional journey in 1965 with the Murugappa Group and as a management trainee with YouTube Investments in the UK. He served in the group in various capacities, including heading the plantation business and then the fledgling financial services business under the name of Cholamandalam Investment and Finance Company Limited. He initiated collaborations, international ones at that, in insurance with Mitsui Sumitomo of Japan. He served as the chief operating officer of the group and went on to be the chairman. He stuck to the conservative view on management of not taking too much debt, and during his tenure, doubled the turnover to 1.6 billion US dollars. He has served many charitable trusts associated with schools, polytechnic colleges, and hospitals, including serving as the chairman of United Way in Chennai. He has been chairman of the Planters Association of Tamil Nadu and the president of OPASI. He is also on the board of governing body of the Cancer Institute of Chennai and has served on the board of the Lawrence School, Lovedale. Welcome, Algie, Mr. Alagappan.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you a little funny slide later on, which I hope you will take lightly.
Okay.
You're part of a 30,000 crore company, a 100-year-old company with a market cap of approximately 75,000 crore to date in lowered valuation. The Murugappa Group is a legacy of entrepreneurship, a conservative outlook to growth, growing brick by brick, I guess, and being a Chettiar, I would say rupee by rupee is more apt. However, over the last 35 years, with different education among the group members and young ones and exposure, surely there must have been restless younger souls of the family wanting to do things differently. Can you comment and share some insights into that?
Thank you, Arjun, for the introduction. I haven't had a very lively growth in my career like the other three have. Been nothing. The group is a fairly diversified group and can give an opportunity for the youngsters. A lot of the different product ranges that we have, they can take up. So far, we have not had anybody who's wanted to start any other business. But if they do, I'm sure we will be able to fund them.
Yeah, but surely over the last 35 years, there must have been somebody in the family who said, no, I want to do things differently. Look at these, you've gone through the dot-com bust. There was the dot-com bust in the 80s and late 80s. And there were so many other things which came up and went down. Weren't there restless souls who were in their 30s after educating themselves at Harvard or other places overseas, coming back and saying, we want to do something else. What did you all, we want to borrow a little more money, we want to have something else. How would you take it?
If the project that they present to us is, we think it's worth it, we will definitely fund them. There's, we've kept a very open mind on that.
Okay, now I'm going to do a little common question to all four of you. I recall a story of a classmate of mine who even Atul might recollect, and a late classmate of ours. He was always enterprising. I think Atul might even tell you a story of him when he was in school. But this guy, when I met him in college, he used to walk in. I was a young cadet in Bombay. He would walk into Sydenham's, into a classroom of 70 kids. They'll walk in, say present, and walk out in front of the lecturer who was taking attendance. And he always had something he wanted to do. He was either selling something, becoming a ship chandler. He was trying to do some business or the other. So I'm going to ask you a quick question, each one. Who goes first? Algie?
Yeah.
Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Is it genetic? Something which is dormant for several generations and suddenly it pops up?
Not necessarily.
Can you be trained to be a successful entrepreneur?
No.
Let me ask Atul, who's an old-timer entrepreneur. Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship?
They can be, just like I was. In fact, I think I was a very reluctant entrepreneur. I had no intention of becoming an entrepreneur. I got educated and my dream was to be a successful employee and live happily ever after. See what happened to me.
Atul, I want to put you on the spot. Yes or no?
Yes.
Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship?
No.
No. Okay. Is it genetic? You think somewhere in the past, in your great-grandfather or someone was an entrepreneur, it suddenly popped up in you?
No.
And can you be trained? Can you go to business school? Can you go to entrepreneurship school and say, hey, I'm going to be a good entrepreneur?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Let me ask Abhishek, what do you think? Is entrepreneurship cut out? Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Is it genetic?
Definitely not. I mean, I would say almost nothing is genetic.
Okay. Can you be trained to be a good entrepreneur?
Yes. I mean, if you, yes, you can.
And finally, Samir, what do you think? Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So there's general consensus on the fact that everybody is not cut out for entrepreneurship. Is it genetic? What do you think? Because genes, I did a lot of study on genes. Do you think it could have popped in after about many generations?
There's no correlation.
There's no correlation. You need scientific evidence for that, right? As far as you're concerned. And can you be trained or does it have to be inbuilt?
I think you can be trained.
Okay. So I think three of you feel that you can be trained to be an entrepreneur. Algie feels you must have it in you to be an entrepreneur. Pretty good. Now I'm going to go to round 2 of the questions. And we go back to Abhishek. Currently, the world over, we are going through unusual times. Yet a company that you call T9L, okay, which you'll tell us more about, is 14 months since it was rebooted, of which almost 8 months has been pandemic time yet. You've successfully run up a valuation of USD $600 million with a portfolio of 30 startups and 85% success. Tell us about the company and clarify based on the above. Should startups generally start when there's a pandemic for success?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit of clarification. So T9L's been around a little bit longer. I got back in. I've been behind it for a few years, and I decided to really get in full time and on about 14 months ago. Sorry, a little bit over 14, but I've been behind it for about 3 or 4 years now. And regarding the valuation, it's a cumulative valuation of our portfolio. So let's I'd just like to keep expectations. So yes, most of the big companies that you see today have come out of crisis, right? I mean, every time the world is turned on its head, it allows you an even playing field, whether it's the World War, whether it's the war in the Pacific. You've seen a lot of businesses and new concepts, and the companies that we know today, like Google and the like, have come out after crisis, whether it's financial, whether it's any other. So definitely, it's more now than ever sort of an even playing field. You don't need the massive resources. People are okay to fund you over Zoom calls. You can actually close deals over conference calls with Japanese and Arabs that traditionally would want to always meet. So it's a huge opportunity for people that don't have the resources. So yeah, definitely.
So you think that when we are going through tough times like this, when businesses are shut down around the world, it's a great time for people like you and for startups who are struggling, who want something done, and you think it's a great time to do things virtually. Fantastic. Please confirm.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. I'm going to go back to Atul now. Atul, you've had a fantastic journey. I've read most of your book. I've seen it. In retrospect, I showed you a little slide earlier, a funny image of how people look at success of an entrepreneur and what it actually is like. I think you might have something to comment on that. However, in retrospect, can you share your observations and life experiences on treating early success when you're young and the accompanied euphoria? And what is your message?
Well, in starting my company, when I got in, I happened to get into consumer products, and I was on the forefront of selling energy efficient appliances in the US. I lived in Europe for some time, and when I moved to the US, there was a need for such appliances. I identified a niche that I felt that I could be successful in. In my case, I started at the bottom. I was really an underdog. I didn't have an American education. I didn't have the money or the resources. So I had to start off. I didn't even have a social security number. I started off with $200 by putting in $200 and getting a secure credit card. But in 10 years, I built it very fast and built a name for the company. But I can say that my company's had 3 phases, and I'm just going to give this as an example because sometimes it's not what it seems. When I started off, I was what you would call a traditional entrepreneur. I wanted to create a brand. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to build a $100 million company or more, issue an IPO, and be wealthy and do all those things. What we forget is in building the company and doing management, there are lots of details in the management and so on that come in, and we lost sight of some of those details. We had a quality problem. One of our suppliers gave us wrong equipment. There was a flaw, and we were almost wiped out. We had a recall on the product. And that taught us some valuable lessons. I said, I'm not going to depend on anyone again. So I went to China and tied up. I set up a joint venture over there, poured money into a company, shared my patents, and then became a manufacturing company. I said, we are going to take control of the manufacturing process. I don't want to let down my customers. That was the second phase of the company. That didn't work out. And now I'm in the third phase of the company where we're actually an innovation company. And we say that we are going to develop products for our customers.
Atul, I want you to tell us about your observation life experience. When you're young, when you treat early success and euphoria, What does it prepare you for? And what is your message about that? Should be treated, very often when you're young, you do well, you feel fantastic. You think, you're on the top of the world, nothing's going to get you down. Have you got some words of caution to people who are watching and future entrepreneurs? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, well, I think it was in the story I just gave that things aren't what they seem, and you have to go through a process of evolution. When you think you're younger, you want certain things. And as you mature, you realize it's not about yourself. It's really about serving others. And each of us, I believe, are serving others through the craft of entrepreneurship and what we produce and give. In my case, it's the products I develop.
Thanks, Atul. I'm going to go back to good old Samir. Samir, after your 4-year stint of free food at Google, you returned to the family business of automotive parts. Why did you do that? And what were both your learnings and your achievements during the next 4 years at India Forge?
So I'll take a step back, and I would actually like to say thank you to my family, my parents, my spouse, and everyone who supported me on my professional journey. I'm the eldest son of this generation, and it's almost incumbent upon me to be the next person to run the family business. My parents never forced me to do that. And I'm very, very thankful to them for that, because I have had experiences in my professional career that are unimaginable to many people on the planet. I'm very thankful for the experiences that I've had and what I'm doing today, whereas I'm funding ventures for the next wave of technology. Why did I do that? Because I actually felt that I wanted to contribute to the family business after having done all of what I had done. I had been on Wall Street, I got my MBA, I had worked in tech for 10 plus years. So from a professional standpoint, personally, I had achieved what I'd set out to achieve. And I saw the taking over and trying to run the family business as a new challenge for me. And it's probably the most I learned in my life was making auto, tractor, and defense components on a factory shop floor in India. I had never had that experience. And today, when I sit across an entrepreneur in India and write a check to them to fund them, I have a much better idea of doing business in India and how it works on the ground, not at a 100 feet above where you're sitting in a Google and you don't really necessarily touch the ground. So that is one of the biggest experiences that I gained from the family business. India customer, India costing, India supply chain, India funding. And I'm very thankful for that. Why I did step out was because I really missed tech. I was longing to go back to tech. And in our manufacturing business, mentally, I was not challenged. So therefore, I set up Venture Highway to try and fund the next generation of tech entrepreneurs coming out of India, building at scale for India, and building globally for India. And we're on Fund 2 now. I'll explain that later. Fund 1, some of our entrepreneurs have created huge value. Forget the value, they've created new categories globally in businesses. One example is social commerce. One of our companies called Misho, literally Vidit and Sanjeev have written the business plan for social commerce on the planet.
Well, Samir, thanks. I just also wanted to know, what did you achieve while you were at India Forge? Because you did mention something about getting into exports, and it is a personal achievement. It's not just a stopgap thing of spending some time appreciating. It's really admirable that you understand the Indian business much better, having worked on the ground at factories. Were there any achievements apart from that at India Forge, not Venture Highway?
Understand. So at India Forge, I certainly did bring a lot of processes into it, especially on the technology side. We didn't even have an email system when I got there. People were using Gmail or Hotmail. I made sure that we put in a tech infrastructure. That was the first thing that I did. Also realized that India costing needs to be subsidized with some export. because the pricing is just better. And since I had worked internationally a lot, we started with Europe and Germany, and we grew the business about 20% internationally. The reason I started with Europe and Germany is because I've lived in America 20 years. I find the Europeans a little longer term rather than quarter to quarter. And our business, it was also closer, and we already had some existing relationships in Europe. So we grew those in the time that I was there. And actually now that has really helped the company scale to a different level, having used those relationships to grow internationally.
Thanks, Samir. That was nice. In fact, I'm sure Atul will share some of his experiences later on about European working with Europeans, which will be maybe different, may not be Europeans in general, but his personal experience with some Europeans. I'm going to go back to you, LG.
Yeah.
And while most feel that one is privileged to be part of a family group company and things are extremely easy, I remember the family, I get it and do it. Did you, Mr. Alagappan, ever start up a company during this period? If so, what was it about? What was the startup capital? What were the challenges? And what did you achieve? And where is it today?
Okay, I was given the opportunity to start the financial services company for our group. My initial capital was 5 lakhs of rupees. That's what I was given. And then we did a rights issue with another 5 lakhs, it's 10 lakhs. And then went on IPO for 25 lakhs. And then grew it from there. The funny part of it, the chap who worked with me is an engineer, not an accountant or a financial wizard. And both of us, we started as a leasing company. We were the second leasing company in this country till such time the government allowed us to claim the deposition. Once they withdrew the deposition from leasing companies, we went on to corporate hire purchase. When that became a SAR product, we went to retail hire purchase, and we are still in that. And the company today has got a 70,000 crore asset under management.
Wow, that's fantastic. Starting capital 5 lakhs, and where have you gone? I'm sure Samir will have some thoughts on that. And I would encourage all 4 of you that if you ever have thoughts about asking each other questions as we're going around, lift your hand. And I mean, if it's when you're lifting a hand, it's about asking another person a question on the panel. I'm sure we'd like to have more interaction. Now I've come to another round of a common question to all of you. And last time I think we started with Algi, so this time we'll start with Abhishek. Now, you know, the old Irani restaurant in Bombay, Britannia, it went down generations. He was happy. He had his little rooster there, the same kind of food. It continues. People loved it. Or that shop in Bengali market, which is selling sweets, or a Sarvana Bhavan, or something like that. Does modern day entrepreneurship build legacy, Abhishek? Does it continue forever? Yes, no.
Yes. Again, yeah, if I could give a more specific answer, but yes, yeah.
It does. You can give me a little more if you want to.
Sure. I'll tell you, I mean, if you look at what I'm spending a lot of my time, most of my time now is a company that I started, Hempstreet. So, you know, basically what we wanted to do now, we've seen, I mean, I was kind of on the sidelines when the first .com started in India. I was 14. And, you know, I had the opportunity to watch it very closely. And what's happened is that we've been building companies to sell, whereas Americans and Japanese, Chinese, they built institutions. They built institutions that have lasted generations, that have defined categories, that have gone the thing is because our generation is only beginning to see wealth, but it's not able to fathom that wealth could be, or wealth of the size of an institution could be the size of a 300-year-old company from Germany, for example. So I think Hempstreet, what we're doing with Hempstreet really is we want to build an institution. So I think it's how you approach entrepreneurship. I mean, are you approaching it to flip it to is somebody bigger from overseas and make a great return and retire, or are you building it to create an institution? I think that defines.
So you've answered my part B of that question. I had 2 little questions for each of you, but you've gone on to that. My second part was, is it important or relevant any longer to build institutions? You've answered that. Atul, what is your take on this? Does modern day entrepreneurship build legacy? Modern day, not your type. Yours old time. But modern day entrepreneurship, as we see popping up everywhere, as what Abhishek and Samir finance and enable, do they build legacy? And is it important any longer, or is it relevant to build institutions in the mind of people?
I'm not sure that they are going to build legacy, nor do I think it's important. I think one has to focus on the present and create jobs, because technology is moving so fast, times are moving so fast. If you're looking at if I'm an old timer, then, and it's only 30 years since I've been an entrepreneur, you can think what's going to happen in 30 years. Most businesses who were around 30 years ago don't exist. And just to go back to the Britannia story, it is historically in the US at least, only 1/3 of businesses actually are passed on to the next generation. 2/3 of them don't, they close down. So Samir, you could probably know this information, and Mr. Alagappan as well. So I'm not sure that historically that's, first of all, 90% of entrepreneurs who become entrepreneurs go out of business in the first 3 years. Those that continue, only 1/3 have a legacy and go on to the next generation. So I'm not sure it's a goal. I'm sure one should be developing value for your lifetime and for your customers. And if it happens, great.
Thanks, Atul. I'm sure Mr. Alagappan might have a different point of view about entrepreneurship and building legacy. Does modern day do it like the way the Murugappa did it, the Murugappa group did it? And is it important for them anymore to build institutions?
It's important to the family to build the legacy, but I'm not too sure whether we can get everybody on board to do the same as we grow forward. As Atul says, we have to build, when we are there, what we can do to build the company, build value into it, and think. The next generation coming in may totally see it differently, and you have to give them the space to see it differently. And they could probably turn, may not be the turn different product, but a method of management may be totally different. Today, you've gone on to digital marketing, which has never existed in our time. So like this, they have to come into some new fields to be relevant.
Okay, Alji, thank you. I'm going to give this to Samir, because now we've had one youngster who says that wants to build institutions. Others generally say that it's not so necessary. Let's do it for the lifetime of the person and see what do you think? You're going to give me money and I make it big, and then you take it away and give it to somebody else. What do you think about building legacy? What do you think about relevance of building institutions today?
I'll start with the founders. So where we invest, we are completely investing in the founders and the founding team. That is actually our bet. And the founder might go from 0 to 1, 1 to 100, and 100 to 1 billion. Then the question of leadership comes in. If the founder feels that they can take it from 0 to 1 billion, fantastic. However, good founders realize that they need help. And the best founders sometimes say, hey, look, I'm a 0 to 100 person, and 100 to billion, you need to bring in someone else. And that's what the guys at Google did. They brought in Eric Schmidt. He was an old hand from Lovedale. And he was the person who became their sounding board as they grew the company. And eventually when Sundar took over, leadership completely changed. So I think the ability for the founders to realize that they need good leadership to grow is very important. Legacy in tech companies where we invest, I don't believe is important. Because you're not building for the family anymore. I mean, you're not building for the next generation to come and run the company anymore. It's things are moving too fast. And a lot of the panelists already said that 30 years ago, the companies that were huge, I think that time frame is going to shrink to like 10 to 15 years. where companies will become irrelevant unless you really innovate very, very quickly.
Right, Samir, thanks. We've got four different, not four different, some similar, some different. And Abhishek has got a particular point of view, which is good. But I'm going to go back now to round three. And Abhishek, do you feel that academic knowledge that we gather via schooling and graduation are major contributors to both getting jobs and to you specifically transitioning from E to E? That means employee to employer or employee to entrepreneur. Do you feel that academic knowledge is very important?
Well, all the jobs that I've done and business that I've been in since I've had a real job didn't exist when I went to school. So like online games publishing, MMOGs didn't exist as a concept when I was in school. So from a social point of view, from learning basic skills, I think math is important. I think school is important, but expecting to make your life based on the static knowledge that you've gained in school, no, I don't think so. But the ability to learn, to put in the work to learn anything, on an ongoing basis, I think that's what will make the difference. So static knowledge, no, and pretty much, I guess other than heart surgery or brain surgery, pretty much everything else you can learn. If you put in the work, you can learn. I mean, I knew nothing about most of the stuff that I've done in the last 12 years. So video games, I knew how to play them, but yeah, I didn't know the business. So if you're willing to put in the work to learn, I think all the learning comes after. But school and college is about being able to interact with people, listening to different points of view. I would say college more than school. So yeah, static knowledge, no. Constantly acquired knowledge, yes.
I think I won't opine too much since I'm moderator, but I'm also an entrepreneur, but I have a tendency to agree with you on that. I'm going to go to Atul, back to Atul, and I want to cover some more ground. You know, Atul, you mentioned Equator Plaza several times in your book. I visited in 2007 and felt you had an extremely passionate and intense connect. What did it mean to you? And you can tell them what Equator Plaza is all about. What are your lessons thereafter from your experience with Mancini, your Italian or European supplier? That's when we compare notes with Samir. So I want you to talk about what Equator Plaza meant to you and what were your lessons after your experience with Mancini?
Oh, well, you're taking me back into memory lane, but for the benefit of those who don't know about it, I think as an entrepreneur, when you become an entrepreneur and you're progressing down the road, you in my traditional bricks and mortar field, that question is actually in two parts. One actually needs to build capital and to grow, and in order to get capital, you have to provide collateral. And so the first part of making a building as a headquarters, which was a very beautiful building, 60,000 square feet, you know. And so I got the best architects and was to have good collateral one could borrow against so you can keep growing. That was on the physical side. The second part of it is it represents success. And you talked about the euphoria, and that was the euphoria that I need to demonstrate success, and that was the demonstration. And this merged two worlds of those. Of course, what happened with Mancini, they were my Italian supplier and for about 15 years, and they acquired another company who was my direct supplier. And they decided, since I was so successful, they said, well, this distributor of ours is over there and let's go and compete with him. So they became my direct competitor and they knocked me out of the market. And therefore I had financial troubles in Equator Plaza and led to the downfall of that prized asset and everything that I owned that it represented. So that's why it started off in the previous question. It's not all that what it seems. And then I went into the next one, into getting wisdom, which is what's the next step now?
Well, thanks, Atul. Thank you for that input, because it also reflects that everything is not always rosy for entrepreneurs. And, it could be ups and there could be downs, and people should realize that. I'm going to go back to Samir. Venture Highway is the name of your company. Why did you and your partner start this? Where did the idea germinate? And for you, you look so content and happy and resourceful and person who's got no problem. Did you ever, or your enterprise ever face bad or hard times in the period since you started? It doesn't seem like it, but we'd like to know a little bit.
I'll start with the hard times. We tried to raise our first fund to help tech entrepreneurs coming out of India. Nobody would give us money. Not a person. One person made a commitment and then he ran away. He never replied to us. He's like, here, I'll give you $1 million. And then he never replied after that. It was really weird. Anyway, so what we did was we took our own capital and started with Fund 1. So that is a huge learning, is that it's very, very difficult to raise capital, especially when you're trying to start something, because it's very risky. It's really, really risky. And here we are, okay, yeah, we have brand names, but we've also never done this before professionally. And that is how we learned. We learned a lot because of that. So that was to answer your first question. And Venture Highway came from Ventura Highway. There's a band called America, which has an album called Ventura Highway. That's actually where the name came from. And we wanted to give back to our country. Literally, it was our passion. We wanted to help the next generation of entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, with our local and Silicon Valley networks. Those are the reasons why we started Venture Highway. And that continues with Fund 2.
Actually, that's what I was looking out to hear. And it's so touching that you wanted to give back.
Yes.
And you're slightly younger, but you've already planned on giving back by helping people. That's a fantastic thought. I'm going to go back to Algie. Do large companies also experience trust going wrong? You guys are huge. You have betrayal and things that one cannot imagine but only wonder about later. I refer to the JV you initiated with DBS Bank. Can you share the story?
See, I was very keen to do retail lending, and I was looking for a partner. Most banks who came to me were wanting to buy me out, but DBS are willing to partner me. So I decided that I will partner with DBS, which is a Singapore bank. And they wanted, first thing, change the managing director, which I agreed to. And before I could say Jack, in 6 months, they had lent out so much money retail, we didn't know whether we were collecting much back or not. Because there was no civil scores or thing. It's only your assessment of the person with which you lent to. So, and we had the financial crisis in 2008. When we took the sums at that stage, we had an asset liability mismatch of 1,700 crores. And that's when the family said, look, and I also turned around and said, look, that's it, DBS. You keep quiet. I'm now going back into the driving seat. And I raised 2,500 crores in 4 months' time. And so my balance sheet at the March end, I had surplus cash in my balance sheet.
So did you also have situations like young entrepreneurs have, like he says, somebody agreed to write him a check for $1 million and didn't turn up? Did you have cases where people you believed in, maybe a banker, maybe who said, we'll give you money, and when you wanted to meet them, or because you're the Murugappa group, everyone comes and kowtows? Or did you have issues where people who you trusted and you believed in would not deliver?
See, my thing is, when I was in the struggle of the 1,700 crores mismatch, we had a thing in the family that we never went to ask for money from bankers. Mostly our financial managers or CFOs would do that. But I had to go to chairman's offices to get money, and there a lot of them, were surprised to see me in their office and everything. But yet, I had one good friend of mine who I always dealt with, and I had given a very good product to fund us, and he kept saying yes to me, and finally he let me down.
Oh, okay, great. I'm going to go to the next round of common questions, and it's going to be quick. So I'm going to ask, if I ask Algie first, he'll have a simple solution. And let me ask, who should I ask? I think Samir is easy. Okay, I'll ask Atul. I'm a 26-year-old professionally creative and a frustrated guy. I have an idea, and I've conducted a closed circle test of concept. I'm possessed with fire in my belly. I have passion and I have belief. I have no family wealth.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I said I have no family wealth. You heard the earlier part of the story?
Yes.
And I don't need $300,000. I just need 20 lakhs. What should I do?
I think he should go for it. If he has an idea, go for it. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Who is going to give me the money? I'm coming to you. I've got the situation. Now I'm asking you, what should I do? I just need 20 lakhs. Where do I go? No bank will ask me for 3 years, banking statements, various things. What do I do?
He goes to Samir.
All right. Next question to Samir. What would you do?
So he'd be too small for me because our smallest check size is about $500,000. I would tell him to do two things. One is either go to friends and family, because that's an amount that the friends and family could probably fund him with, or a small angel network in his city that is funding first-time entrepreneurs. That is where I would direct this person. I like the fact that he's hungry. He's already done market research and wants to explore his business idea. Those are the two places I would send him to.
Yeah, but he's got no family money. I've already said that. Amma, Appa have no money. So what do I do? No family. I'm from a poor background. I'm from. So do I go to Abhishek, who believes like I can make? I've got fire in my belly, and you think you can make me into an institution?
So before going to a venture capitalist, there are these angel networks that fund entrepreneurs. That would be another alternative for this entrepreneur to go to.
You know, in the backyard.
Maybe Abhishek, you can just take the question when.
Yeah, maybe Abhishek, you can go ahead.
You can just go ahead with the same question. Is that for this person looking to get 20 lakhs, where would you send him?
No, I'd sort of look at I'd kind of agree with Samir on the angel network. I mean, today the internet is kind of ubiquitous. I mean, there's a lot of crowdfunding opportunities. There's a lot of money from different corners of the world. Like people have funded crazy stuff over the last 10, 15 years from those platforms. So yeah, there is. I mean, fortunately, we've connected, and there are people now. You can connect with people around the world who might just be interested in that exact thing. So I would say agree with Samir on the angel network and score the internet. I mean, there will definitely be something out there.
I'll also add incubators and accelerators. These are people who actually help you even develop your business plans further. Yeah, so if you're a first-time entrepreneur and you really don't know where to go, angel networks, incubators, accelerators are some of the places I would send all entrepreneurs to.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to pitch T9L, but yeah, Abhi at T9L.com. But yeah, I don't want to pitch the company. That's what we do. But yeah,
I'm going to ask Algie.
I was trying to be that hungry person. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted you to be. And while I'm going to ask Algie, he'll just say, "Come to me, I'll give you a check." But actually, what would happen? I mean, there are people like this. I mean, in fact, we started this thing called Interlash basically for microfinance of small quantities of money, where people have fire in their belly, they want to do, they can't go anywhere. What would you do, Algie?
Two things. One is, I don't think the group would subscribe to that. So you have to do it from your own personal funds. And I have myself done a couple of these things. It's not 20, it's more than 20 lakhs, but I have done angel funding.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the next question, and if I go off the video for some time, it's just to adjust some power situation, but I'll be listening to you continuously. So Abhishek, while marijuana is something that our ancient Ayurveda and all of us from the 50s and the 70s, right through the 70s, believed was very relieving, the country banned its use in the early 80s, probably on the US and international pharma company pressure. Nonetheless, medical cannabis is something we've discussed in a recent Oil Nation session on palliative care. Well, I will tell you to tell us a bit about Ayurveda and Ram, a story which you gave me about. I'd also like you to introduce us to your company, Hempstreet, and why it rouses your passion.
So I'd say marijuana is kind of a racist word. It was invented to demonize the Hispanic population, claiming that when they smoked it, it made them crazy. So I would say cannabis would be the right word to use. Anyway, that's essentially it was completely legal, part of our culture. Medicine largely. Forget the recreational part. In 1985, under U.S. pressure, India had to ban it with no absolute reason for it. And it was also the time when painkillers, Crocin, if you grew up in the 80s, you know that you suddenly had Crocin and paracetamol and all these things suddenly appeared in India. Now, how Hempstreet came about was I was in San Francisco and also reading and seeing for myself the opioid crisis unfold and the fact that they were able to get essentially a generation addicted to painkillers. 70,000 people a year die from it. This similar stuff is happening in Punjab and parts of India where you have this similar kind of opioid, off-label sales. So we looked at it, me and my co-founders, we looked at it and we figured that cannabis was something that could actually solve a lot of the pain relief issues that opioids were being prescribed for in the US. And in India, about only 8% of people that live with pain, chronic pain, have any sort of pain relief. Now, couple that with the fact that every time we've had an agricultural revolution, the farmers have suffered. And 83% of our farmers have 3 hectares or less. I mean, what are you going to make from 3 hectares? Nothing. So basically, we saw the opportunity to when I say build an institution, we saw the opportunity to do something that could actually benefit farmers, give them a cash crop, and on the other hand, tackle the opioid crisis and provide, responsibly dispense pain relief. So, I mean, that's what the opportunity for us to create something that for once was also completely indigenous. The plant is indigenous. The pain relief crisis is indigenous. The farming issues are indigenous. So it was something we could create an institution that was fully indigenous. I think that's what made us, really excited. And that's kind of been our mission, really, to build something that where like all sides of the table benefit. So that's what gets me excited. Now about the story about Ram. Ram is a dear friend of mine, and he's one of the entrepreneurs who's part of our portfolio. He runs a company called Murugappa. He had hepatitis, and he was literally dying. And his story, he told me he was cured by an Ayurvedic doctor. And as a result, he quit what he was doing in events and wanted to start something in Ayurveda. So he came to us with borrowing money for cab fare. And he built Murugappa, which now 3 years later is the world's biggest platform of Ayurvedic doctors. He's got 62,000 doctors. He's got 200 branded clinics all over India. And he created basically, the issue about Ayurveda was that we never had information sharing. So while Western medicine took off because of information sharing, publishing, research, Ayurveda just stayed in that static knowledge, just as I talk about static knowledge, it stayed static. So he's able to take it and move it forward. And I would say Hempstreet in big part is also, thanks to what he did with Ayurveda. So yeah, so that's, I don't know if I've answered the question directly.
You have. In fact, that story about Ram is actually inspiring. And I'm sure there'll be many people who would feel now comfortable enough, if you're open to it, to reach out to you. With people with belief and passion. I know Samir has said that people can reach out to him through his LinkedIn profile. You have said you can be reached out, but it's a fantastic story. And I think it's really inspiring. I wish I was 20 years younger and I could approach you for ideas Samir, I had in my head. And
well, Samir has money. He funds. We don't.
Yeah.
so if you want money, go to Samir. If you want to build product, come to us.
All right. So now I'm going to go back to my friend Atul. And I'm going to pause a bit, but I'm going to quote, how can a person who knows the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? You quote from the Bhagavad Gita, you quote from Buddha, from Ulysses, from Sun Tzu, and even our good old Tiruvallur's Tirukkurals. After the Mancini experience and subsequent betrayal of trust, did you get spiritual and accept karma? Can you briefly share your thoughts on betrayal and trust?
Well, I think I'll start off with trust. Trust is a very important thing for an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs depend on it. And it has, I can say that even though the Mancini episode you're talking about, which was a classic betrayal where my supplier wanted to compete with me and almost ran me out of the market, but I've had many experiences of people believing in me. People, my first office who allowed me to stay rent-free for some time. People who, I remember when I started off and my business was growing, there was one of my big distributors who came, new distributor, and he said, I want to order $100,000 worth. And I said, I don't have the money. And he said, what do you mean you don't have the money? You have a product, it's in Fortune, Wall Street Journal, and now I'm ordering $100,000, you don't have the money? Now this is before, long time ago, before there was venture capital and so on. It wasn't as established as it is now. So he looked at me and he said, but I want the product. I said, I just can't supply it. I have to produce the product and deliver it to you. It's made overseas. It's a long supply cycle. He said, are you good for the money? And I said, yes. He wrote out a check for $100,000. I'm in America. He's a different color. I have a different name. I have a different color. And he's an American guy. He hands me over a check for $100,000 and says, here you are. Don't let me down. So that is experiences which every entrepreneur faces, where people believe in you. The flip side is, and then you grow more and more people. So people who think that you're not accountable to anyone, you are. Now going to your story about the Bhagavad Gita, you actually believe in your craft, about growing, about serving your customers. And when somebody lets you down for greed or for some other reason, it is almost, why did he do that? Is it just for him to get richer? Doesn't he know there's a price? I actually didn't know that. And for some reason, I think people who do come from business families realize this can happen. Many of us who don't come from business family, I think this can be almost a fatal flaw, that we don't believe it can happen to people. You believe people are noble and kind and so on. And when something like this happens, you know, it knocks you out. It knocked out 10 years of my life, and it took me a long time to stand up and to believe there was something in business. I actually started believing that business was very corrupt for a very shallow reason, just to make money. And it took me some time to believe in myself that what I'm actually doing is serving my customers by giving them products that help them in their daily lives, which is what I do. So that took 10 years in that transition. That is a very deep philosophical quote from Gita.
So thanks, Atul. I mean, so it does tend to get you to start thinking differently, no longer brash, no longer gambling. But now I have to go back to our good friend who's a venture capitalist. And for that, I want to share my screen with this. And, you know, I want to ask him, you know, can you explain terms like Fund 1, Fund 2, or Fund A, Fund B, Series 1? Because in general, also tell us the numbers and zeros involved. While explaining the process of enabling companies to scale up, you springboard on an idea that I have got. How do these valuations work? And after each funding, it changes. And thereafter, are they just virtual numbers based on a concept? And think, you know, these are the common man like us who suddenly see a Flipkart or a Uber or something valued at some numbers with no assets. We don't understand this. Can you throw some light, or is it just, as this little funny image shows, money into property owners?
You're asking me about the Holy Grail in like a few minutes. But the way I look at it is where we live. We live in a very risky part of the world, which is very early stage technology venture. The minute we write the check, we already know that 90% of our companies will probably fail mathematically. So early stage seed tech venture capital is a very risky asset class. Please do not put your money in here unless you are really wealthy. And even if you have 100, maybe put 5 into this asset class. That is the first thing that I will start with from an individual portfolio perspective. We take ownerships in companies, which generally are 15 to 20%. And depending on the stage of your company, we'll give you $500,000 to about $2, maybe $3 million. That is the spread. And the valuation question is very simple. Anyone and everyone who asks me about valuation, I'm a Chicago guy. Valuation is what the market is willing to pay. If you believe that concept, please take it with you. Someone wants to value your asset at a level. That's what the market is willing to pay. That is the valuation of your company. Now, people will not value your company unless you're growing or unless you have something very unique or you're eventually going to be making a lot of money. Because the world, I believe, because again, I'm a Chicago person, markets are efficient. So to summarize and answer the questions that you did, that's how I would break it up in those 3 points.
Okay. Can you tell us about at least 2 tech startups which are nurtured by Venture Highway that give you great satisfaction, or maybe a Ram story like Abhishek gave us, something to inspire us, something to tell the young, someone, that if you did this and this is what the success was, because failures are there, ups and downs, but we all live on hope. We live with something that we can achieve. And that's what drives entrepreneurship.
Again, I salute our entrepreneurs because they are so resilient and so hardworking. We could never achieve this of what we've done without them. Fund 2 is pretty young. We've been around 2 years, and fruition in startups takes 5+ years. Fund 1 has been around about 5 years now. 2 of the companies that have really broken out is a company called Meesho, which is founded by Vidit and Sanjeev. They do social shopping. They invented social shopping. And the second company is Moglix, which is a business-to-business commerce platform for the industrial companies starting in India, now going global. These guys have started from scratch. We were the first check into these entrepreneurs. Those are some of our founders that we nurtured earlier on and are very, very proud of and have scaled very well.
Hey, thank you, Samir. You've skipped one thing. I want you to scare us with the numbers. We don't understand this. Series 1 or series, what is the number we're talking? Is it 20 lakhs or is it $200 million? I want you to shock us with that. We want to know what we're looking at.
So Meesho has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Valuation in the press would be north of $500 million already. Moglix has also raised $100 million. And I cannot comment on the valuation because it's not public. Having said that, for venture capitalists, you need to create this kind of value because if you fund 20 or 30 companies, you already know 80 to 90% of them will die. So you need the 1 or 2 outliers to make up for all of the other mistakes that I have been making and will continue to make in the foreseeable future.
Okay, later on you can tell us whether these numbers which are bandied about are they virtual numbers or actually do they mean reality? But I have to go to Mr. Alagappan, who must be waiting on the sidelines for the next question. And for that, I'm going to ask him, I'm going to show something to all of you. Okay, what are your thoughts on traditional methods of starting a business? Conservative, with little debt, betting small and building big, versus the new, financing, valuation, quick results, betting large with hope, and playing for today. Your group philosophy says that the fundamental principle of economic activity is that no man you transact with will lose, and then you shall not. Now, that's fantastic. Today, it's, you kill somebody, you gain, it's fine. So what are your thoughts on that?
We are still a very traditional family. We would start, small and build up a company. We have not gone into any of these high-tech things because none of us understood that. And the chaps who understood it have also come back to the brick and mortar companies.
Is that it? I mean, I'm talking about you still believe that the old way of doing work, even in today's world, is good for you, and we should not change, and we should continue moving that way without, increasing virtual value, so to say.
No, well, one would like to create value, but not at the cost of others.
Yeah. Okay. That's very good. So now I'm going to go to the little general question to everybody else, and what do I want to do? I want to ask you this question. Wait. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on professional mentoring? Does it enable and help? Quick, Samir, yes or no? Does professional mentoring help in your yard?
Absolutely.
And in your mind, what would be the profile of the mentor?
That depends on what you're trying to achieve in your company. And specifically, if it's a tech mentor or a business mentor, it depends. So you need to find the mentor who can actually help you, not just a name.
Okay. Atul, do you think it enables and helps professional mentoring? Is it relevant?
Yes, it does. And it is relevant if you can find the right mentor.
So what would your profile for a right mentor? That's what I'm trying to get at. It's this thing, you see this funny image which says mentoring is not about making everybody else the same as you. And that's what you might find many mentors try to do. They tell people what to do to make them themselves and not the other way around.
Well, I think if you're not from a business family, then it's very important to find a business mentor who can explain some of the risks and the fundamentals of business. You might know about the specific product or widget that you're marketing or making, but the business principles take a long time, and probably Mr. Alagappan, who has a history, and also Samir, will have a head start coming from business families. So I think most of the others who don't come from business families do need that mentoring, because that's where the risks lie. And in my case, that was my downfall also.
Okay, Abhishek, quickly, what is your thoughts on this subject?
I'll take a sort of a long approach on it, right? I think everybody sort of knows something that you don't know. And in my whole life, my experience has been giving people time of day. Now, saying about mentor, you should have to figure out what you really want to improve about yourself, and then patiently receive it from somebody that you respect, that you think has it. I'll give you an example from my life. My best friend, a very dear friend of mine, and brother, he's from Israel. He's Israeli American, so he's Jewish, so obviously he's really good at business. I learned the specifics of running a business like a grocery store, in terms of attention to detail from him. And his mentorship was more of a lot of bad language. And because he's a very dear friend, I took it. But yeah, I think it's about what you think you need to improve about yourself, and finding the person that you can be patient with to learn.
Okay. Algie, what do you think about professional mentoring? Do you use it in your group companies? And what do you think is the profile of the mentor should be?
Yes, we do use mentoring. May not be for a development or the business or thing which we should know, but a lot of times in dealing with people, we have had issues where we had people dealing with the subordinates or colleagues. We have had to use mentors.
Excellent. So now I'm coming to the last round, and we're going to go through it quick because I think we're doing well on time. I've got another 15 minutes, which will give us time to go through things. I hope I'm seeing some questions coming on the chat. But before that, let me go back to Abhi. And when I talk to Abhi, I'm going to share my screen on this. And I read somewhere of your interest in casino and gaming. Is it purely natural to gamble and make money? Or was it another tech story about some application in the casino business? Or unless I read it wrong. Also, while I'd like you to tell us if entrepreneurship is a gamble. Everyone looks at techpreneurs and the like as greatly successful people. Can you share a story of any low points in your short journey? I refer to fantasy football.
Uh, okay. So, yeah, of course, there have been several low points. I think, yeah, I would say doing anything on your own where you don't have a sure salary, or you don't have, if you don't screw up, you just continue on the same job. Yeah, it is a risk. I would say it's a gamble in that way. Uh, but it's a gamble that you kind of have the opportunity to take a U-turn at any point, right? I mean, if you have your own business with entrepreneurship, you can shut it down. You can stop it in its tracks and turn its direction. It's not a gamble that you know, without any. Whereas we work for a company, as you see in crises, that the whole thing goes down and you have no control over it, and suddenly the whole life that you had planned for yourself was gone. Somehow, entrepreneurship, I would say, is less risky on that front. Yeah, on fantasy football, it was a social fantasy football games company that a few friends of mine from the online casino industry wanted to do something in social gaming, because I had a background in games publishing. So I helped develop the product. We built a pretty impressive football product out of Cyprus. We'd done some really, you know, I'd closed the first deal in Moscow. I mean, I went to Moscow in winter and closed the deal, so they had to sign with me because I showed up in winter, unlike Napoleon and Hitler, I would say. And you know, we built it a lot of me was in that product, and yeah, and I kind of got, I would say, screwed out of that company. So I lost all the equity that I built up. It was kind of devastating. Yeah, I mean, that's one of a few low points that I've had, but that's the most recent. But again, it's in the past, and
Yeah, I mean, you did say gamble, but you know, it's fantastic. Here we have Samir who says 90% of failure, and you've got 85% success in your earlier part of the story. So it's fantastic. So they're contrasting, and I put that down to starting during the pandemic. And if you go through the pandemic, you're going to get very good success. Just a joke, but letting you know. Sorry. So I'm going to go back to Atul. And for Atul, I've got another little share screen. I want to ask him if he feels like this, because, you know, does he feel like this as an entrepreneur? And I mean, today you're wearing your battle jacket, which is school. You got school on your sleeve all the time. You mention Lovedale fairly often in your book. And while humans, for most humans in general, lack of success in a few attempts is considered failure, actually the truth is possibly that we only fail when we stop trying. Does that ring a bell with the school motto for you and your journey? Now, as a senior citizen and in retrospect, what is your message to our audience based on your personal experiences over your voyage of entrepreneurship?
Well, I could speak for about 30 minutes on what you just said, but I'll try and cut it down. But first of all, I'll talk about the school clothes. I'll talk about the battle jacket. The battle jacket, of course, as you know, was something from British times. And we, of course, in school, this was the school uniform when we were there. And in school, it actually felt like we were in battle every day. Whether we had to deal with seniors or punishment or even looking for food, which was quite different in those days, it was a daily battle. This battle gave us the inspiration as adults to lead through the daily sort of trials and tribulations. But as an entrepreneur, I go into battle every day. We are dealing with challenges and threats which are unknown and unknown, seen and unseen. And for me, in my profession as a developer of consumer products, and I deal with multiple countries on 4 different continents, you're dealing with different languages, cultures, you're dealing with different threats and global issues. You're dealing with nowadays blogs and so on. Every single customer can express an opinion. I actually come in with a mindset of going into battle every day. This is what I come in over here. So I see your quote over here. I started off 30 years ago, a person who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane. I'm still learning. And this happens to me every single day. I walk into office. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I come in my battle jacket mentality. Of course, I don't wear this every day, but my mentality is that I come into battle, I am ready for whatever happens, something is going to change.
Great. I think you put a lot of relevance to the battle jacket, which I don't know if it's part of the uniform anymore. I wish they did. Maybe they might put it back on. If Prabhakar Nair is watching, he might decide to put back the battle jacket to give them the right spirit. But I'm going to go on to Samir. And although you didn't pass out finally from Lovedale due to some small health reasons the last year or so, having spent several years at both Shishya, which is also a strong connect with Lovedale, and Lawrence, do you feel any of that influenced your life is one question. In your mission of giving back, would you want to do something with the young ones at Lawrence?
So actually, what I am today, a large part of this is boarding school in Lawrence. Resilience, being independent, being able to deal with all kinds of people from the south to the north of India, being leveled at the same level with everyone. You had to share your tuck. You couldn't be exclusive in any way. I mean, these are qualities and values I have carried on through my life. So if you ask me in my schooling, Lawrence was a very, very big part of who I am today. You throw any situation in me and I can handle it. And a large part of it is thanks to Lovedale. I would love to continue to give back. And when Rohan got in touch with me, I said, what a fantastic idea. My goal now is to try and set up a entrepreneurship cell at Lawrence. If I can just help people, even if I have to do it on a Saturday for an hour, I'm happy to give time for the current students or certain OLs who want to learn what I know about funding very early stage ventures. And hopefully one or two of them we might fund. So the idea is just to kindle the minds who are thinking about entrepreneurship to say, hey, look, there is a slew of resources available out there if you want to try and start a business. I would love to start that kind of a program. And I'm happy to be a part of that kind of a program at Lawrence School.
Thank you, Samir. I mean, that's really encouraging, and I'm sure it must inspire people, not only who are in school, but old school children who are in the field, who have fire, who have passion to reach out. And like we've said earlier, feel free to reach out. I think Rohan will tell you on the chat where to reach out, or just find Samir Sood. He's easy to find on LinkedIn and then connect with him. And he says he's open to connection.
Absolutely.
Now, the last question to Mr. Alagappan, before I go on to the round robin, and then I'll throw some questions from the audience right here. Aji, the Murugappa group has always had charities in place. Is this important to the group and you personally, or is it just something that looks good? And today's corporate laws require a CSR component. Why do you feel charitable work is important to both you and the group? And while you have been a board member of the alma mater, what is your opinion? Is it better to give back? What is your opinion? What, in your opinion, is the better way to give back than writing a check? Writing a check anybody can do. What is your opinion about how should we give back?
One, to start on the first question, we have always believed that if we earn, we must give back something to the community. And that's the basis on which our charity is being built at. It was started by my grandfather when he made his money, did a free hospital in our village. And from there, we've developed fairly large charitable institutions. Two, on the school, other than the check, is if need to be able to talk about my experience or to talk about business opportunities or career opportunities, yes, I would like to sort of give back to the children that.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask you if all four of you agree that this is basically a day in the life of an entrepreneur. Does it look something like this? I saw one or two nods, three nods. I mean, so generally we agree that this is the general day. Everyone thinks it's rosy, but this could be our kind of day, right? Any of us when we're going through our normal day, and when you need your battle jackets on to fight it and go into battle. But I've got another question. Has the government in India made things better towards setting up new enterprises, especially in terms of ease of business, compared to say, I'm talking about compared to say 20 years ago. We're not talking about could they do better? Yes, they could. But compared to 20 years ago, could they do, have they made things better? Algie, I'll
I
ask you one.
No, I don't think so. I think we had the best time in this country for starting businesses was pre Indira Gandhi period. After that, we got into a lot of mess of having to pay for licenses, having to then and slowly from there it's now going. You know, you want to start a business in India, you want to put a factory in India. You know, the number of people that you have to bribe is plenty. You know, it's not easy to start. While everybody keeps saying that it's so easy to start business in India, you know, the chief minister of the state would like to say he signed 25,000 crore worth of businesses yesterday. But ask how many of them are really down on the ground working.
So basically, you're saying there is no ease of business yet compared to 20 years ago. It's about the same.
I don't think so.
Okay, let's ask Atul Veer, who's just moved into India and started doing business started launching his products in India. What do you feel, Atul?
I think it's quite difficult, but I think that it's certainly easier than when I left India, which was about 37 years ago. It was very difficult then. There were a lot more laws at that time. There were not so many opportunities. Of course, when I left, I wasn't planning to become an entrepreneur. That's what ultimately I became due to circumstances. But having made my entry into India about 6 months ago, just launched the Equator brand. And I think there are lots of old school thoughts, mainly. Yes, we're talking about the government. There are a lot of regulations, and I find them quite ridiculous, including things like transfer of capital to India and so on, where there seems to be this mistrust about foreign capital and how it comes in. There's a lot of bureaucracy and what I call the Babu mentality that they seem unnecessary. And one even wonders why, if there were 20 steps, why it can't be 3 steps. I do agree that there has to be rules and regulations. And we know that from our school days, we lived according to that. But why does it have to be so cumbersome that something that would normally take 3 months in the US takes one year or more in India? So yeah, I think it should be much easier.
So what you're saying is we have done better, but it could do much, much better. We have improved over the 20 years. Let me ask Samir. If you noticed, Abhi, you're at the bottom because we're going by seniority now. And Samir, I know I saw you giggling. I saw you laughing on a couple of comments. But nonetheless, Samir, what do you think? Have things become better than what they were? I mean, we're not talking of what is and what can be. What have they become better in the last 20 years? Otherwise, why is there so much inflow? Why are there more industries coming? Or are they just coming to go through license Raj and permissions?
So I think there is an opportunity in India. That's why a lot of capital is looking at India. Having said that, it's very difficult to do business in India. Even structuring a fund out of India is not simple for various reasons. And I understand the reasons. What I think the government should do is learn from the countries that have done a bang up job of this, say for example, as Singapore or even as China, that have become innovation hubs on the planet. Israel. Study those and come up with structures that work for you as a government, but do not stifle innovation, is how I would put it.
Abhishek, what is your take on this?
So, I mean, I think there's never been a better time to be in India. I mean, I've kind of come back. I mean, I'm stuck here now, but I'm coming back. And, you know, at least most of my time, I think we've now, my generation has seen some success stories. So people are willing to put in the work and the time to deal with the delays to build businesses. Like, I think on that perspective, I think more than what the government can do for you, I mean, that's going to stay, it's layered. It's a diverse country full of babus, but the people are, more and more people are willing to persevere through that hassle to start businesses. One, because if you look at the metrics, India is now where China was, you know, when I left in 2005 or 2006. So we've crossed 550 mobile internet users. The world kind of hates China. and a lot of the capital's coming here. Things are working for us. So the opportunity itself will take care of the hassle, and people have started businesses in worse places. I'll give you an example of Hempstreet. I mean, we're in cannabis. It's a highly regulated substance. Can you imagine the stuff we had to go through? I mean, and without paying, I mean, we didn't pay anybody. We chose to engage the scientific community, the bureaucracy around science, CSIR. So that helped us move a lot faster because we focus on the science. So there's always a way to, without bribery, of course, to proceed. I don't know about building a factory because I mean, we're now building manufacturing, but so I think the opportunity, when there's an opportunity and when there's capital coming in, I think all these hassles it'll be worth it to go through it. So I think that's the way I look at it.
Really refreshing insights from each of you. But I've got one last bit of, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the innovation, if you look at China, if you look at Israel, I mean, there was an article recently about all the excitement about manufacturing coming to India. But if you look at Google, if you look at Apple, a lot of the core technologies came out of defense. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff that's coming out of Israel, I mean, most of my dear friends are Jewish and Israeli. So if you look at motion sensing for the Xbox, if you look at a lot of stuff, it's come out of defense. I think that's one part. I mean, now given the stress at the border, I think we should, open out some of that defense funding for, I mean, there's a good reason. And I think that will spur a lot of innovation. Like, I mean, as much as you can deny it, state funded has a place, and has been in all the advanced countries.
Yeah, Abhi, okay, thanks. I've got just one last little bit, and you can give me a quick yes, no. The Indian judicial system is a place that things get stuck. So are the new amended laws in ADR, specifically the Arbitration and Reconciliation Act 2016, has it given confidence to you entrepreneurs for new businesses, including investing from overseas? Because then you don't have to go to court for everything with the new laws. Does that give you all a little bit of confidence? Samir?
Well, our sector is not as regulated. So the answer is I don't know. Okay.
Atul, what do you think about ADR and Reconciliation Arbitration Act? Having amended it, actually the whole idea of amending it was to conform with what is required in the world of business to make it easier. Earlier, we didn't have that. The amendments brought in a lot of change, which allows decisions to be taken by an arbitrator and not being appealed every time, higher up. So what do you think, Atul? Does it give you more confidence to work in India and by putting an arbitration clause into every contract of yours?
Yes, certainly. We do have that in the US over here. That does give more confidence. We know that disputes happen, disagreements happen. Nobody wants to get bogged down in the system for years and years. And at the end of the day, the lawyers make the most money. So I think, yes, but I think we as OLs know how to stay out of trouble. We were constantly trying to stay out of trouble. I think we're uniquely positioned to not take advantage of that and just stay out of trouble.
Algie, what are your thoughts on arbitration? And you're already old time. You might be having cases in court, but with ADR in place, with the new amendments of 2016, how do you see it?
The arbitration amendment is very good, and if it works. The problem is in this country, whoever loses on the arbitration goes into court. Arbitration is not the last say. Unless they make arbitration the last say, that you cannot appeal on it, then only it will work. But in the chap who loses goes, and I'm sure Atul will say, your arbitration doesn't say that it should be in India, it will be in Singapore or London or somewhere. Because you find that it is much, you get a better hearing in those countries than you would get in India.
True, but the new arbitration clauses, if you've seen, it believes that it cannot be appealed unless it involves public policy or something like that. You cannot just go and appeal. That used to be the case prior to the amendments. And the amendments finally, although they're called 2016, it only came into force in 2017 or 18, something like that. Abhishek, what do you think?
Well, I'll have to be honest, I don't know much about it, but I would say at the stage of companies that we work with or the business that we are in, if you argue and go to court or go to a third party, the business is already done. I mean, at that point, it's finished. You have nothing to argue about.
Right.
You don't have that leeway to go and fight. And I guess for larger companies, real estate and stuff, maybe, but what we do, you're finished. If the team breaks up, you're done anyway. So.
Okay, now I promised to try and get you to a destination across in 90 minutes. We've taken 95. So we're almost there across the shores. And before I get Rohan, I'll invite Rohan as also an entrepreneur to come back in, summarize the whole, what all we've written, and to maybe pose a few questions. But before that, there is a question here from a Kinshuk Das for Samir. How do you assess startups with hybrid offshore-onshore models give back to India when they are focusing on expanding their business more in the US or Europe? And also eventually start hiring more client-focused professionals, which means high pay, than in India. Now you can give a quick, short answer and ask him to connect with you on mail to give him a detailed answer. That way we can get on with the show and Rohan won't get upset.
No, absolutely. We do look at India outbound. It's certainly part of our investment plan. It depends on the type of business. The way I would look at it is if I can add value, I will try and be a part of that startup. If I can't add value through our networks, then we will potentially not invest in the startup.
Okay, and I didn't see anyone's hand up, but I know Abhishek had told me he had a question for Mr. Alagappan. So I'm going to put him on the spot, and I don't know if he remembers this question, but go ahead. He told me casually when I had a long chat like I did with each of you. He said, "Of course, I'll have a question." So Algie, brace yourself from the youngest to the oldest.
No, it was just that there are so few really large business groups in India, and I would put it in a way that the pressure of everything is on them, right? To create jobs, to be philanthropists, to basically propel the economy forward. Even today, the number of very, that kind of wealth is still, far and few between. And some of these companies are extremely profitable. So I was more like a suggestion. If everybody put about 2 or 3% of their net profit into a kind of a risky venture fund, I mean, if among all these like for example, the Reliance story that we're all celebrating, it's unfortunate that 90% of all investments in a sector that's supposed to be driven by small entrepreneurs or innovators goes to a large business house, right? So but I think Mr. Alagappan answered it when he said he does investment. I mean, he does invest sort of angels type, but it was just a suggestion that if all the business groups, I mean, every year have allocated maybe 2 or 3% of their net profit towards, investing in something more risky and grassroots, I think there'll be a lot more billionaires that would take the pressure of philanthropy off you and job creation off you. I think that it was more a suggestion.
Okay. Arjun, you got a comment on that?
No, I agree. But then what happens is the old school has the old school thought also, why go into any new venture when the old one is working? That's the block that we have. We should get rid of the block and say, okay, look, let's start venture capitalism. I agree with you.
Yeah, okay. Now I'm going to hand over to Rohan to summarize, but there's one little question from Sriram Balachandran of 1977 India, who says to Samir, a passion, a vision, and a mission of an entrepreneur, where money was not the only issue, but to make a difference in society. What would be your advice?
It depends on the type of business. If it's a social type of business, then there are many people who are doing social entrepreneur funding also. So it depends on what kind of business you're trying to fund. Let me tell you, there are people across the asset class who are looking to fund not just for-profit businesses. If you are passionate enough, please let me know. I can help nudge you in the right direction, even because I know enough people peripherally, even if they're not in my sector.
All right, thanks, Samir. Rohan, would you like to take it away and summarize the entire session and then do something if you have some questions as an entrepreneur?
Okay, well, I suppose most of you know this is a pet project of mine, and I was keen to get the entrepreneurship topic on as soon as possible, but only after we got some traction to see whether this OL Nation concept would work, in the first place. And having spoken to all of you over the last several weeks and months, I've really, it's like I said last time, it's very fulfilling for me, for the team, and so on and so forth. And in crafting this particular session, what we wanted was, a range of folks, right? I'm a shipping guy, I'm a ship broker, ship operator, and I was entering India probably 2006 or 2007, and we had a minister who came for the meeting with a big stick, he was from the southern part of the country, let's put it that way, right? So when anyone asked a question he didn't like it, he would just start hammering the table. And we had folks from all over the world saying, is this the right country to enter with this type of minister? And he was a minister for shipping, right? And so anyway, someone posed a question and I answered it. I was on a side panel and I said, look, India is like this big, long VLCC, a big, large ship. By the time, yes, you can jump on now, but you can also jump on by the time the ship off the aft, onto the aft of the ship, because it's a bit slower than normal. Today, the size of the ship is getting smaller and smaller, and the window is closing. So yes, the opportunity exists, and here we have the Murugappa group, which is over 100 years old, and we've got, who's the youngest guy out here? Hempstreet, but you know what? What are they doing? They're connecting the past with the future. And I think one of the things we wanted to do with this, especially this session, was to inspire the Lawrencian community, okay, to share our different stories. And that's what we've done out here, right? We're talking about legacy business like the Murugappa group. We got what I call a classic entrepreneur, Atul, and his stories. I mean, I don't think he showed his book, but yeah, Underdog book, yeah. I really, this book, it's a great thing. It's resonated with all of us. And of course, Abhishek talking about the future, and Samir, with his big bags. I mean, I'm quite surprised that he said, 90% negative rate. But I think, his success obviously overshadows the negatives. So that's where we are. I have one question, and that's Samir touched upon it. It is based on what we want to do with OL Nation: inspire, mentor, network, and so on and so forth. So Samir talked about giving. And I think Atul and I spoke about it, Arjun, of course. What are we going to give back to our old Lawrencian community, right? The OLA conned me into they strong on me into coming on the committee. And they said, Rohan, can you guys put something together? I said, of course. I mean, there's enough and more talent. I mean, we've got OLs, 5,000 or 6,000 old Lawrencians across all industries all over the world. Can we put something together from as a fund or as a incubator, or what did you call it, Samir, e-cell?
Entrepreneurship.
Can we target these young old Lawrencians, out of college and so on and so forth? And can we encourage them and inspire them to be entrepreneurs? Do you think it's going to work? So let me ask Abhi, you're the youngest. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. Like, there was no semblance of entrepreneurship when my mom and my dad, my grandparents were doctors and professors. And so just the fact that I got over that fear, I mean, it's just sometimes it's just breaking it down into simple language when people can, I think, just understand that it's not like something so crazy to, and sometimes it's just about speaking. Like, I've had friends of mine that had no intentions of being entrepreneurs, and if you just let them talk about what they're passionate about and then tell them that, yeah, this is what's going to be the real difficult part. I mean, you could lose all your money or whatever the stuff, but just giving them maybe the 1 or 2 steps that you took, just sharing that 1 hour can make a huge difference, especially because I'm a first generation. So I had to learn whatever I had to learn. I had nobody to tell me, and I'm happy to share that. And I think sometimes that alone makes a huge difference, like takes the fear out.
Okay. Atul, you and I have spoken about this a few months ago, right? Can we do something for our old Lawrencian community? And will they bite? I mean, will they be interested? I mean, that's the other thing, right?
Well, absolutely. I think this is a great idea, and I'll also be on board for this. I think we do need to offer this as an alternative career choice. And I think that that people from our school, OLs will be uniquely positioned Because the thing that about our school is that we learn how to build relationships, not only learn to survive from people from different parts of India, religions, and so on, but you have to, in order to survive in school, you have to know how to build relationships, and you have to, just to survive, and that is the key component of becoming an entrepreneur. You have to get along with people, and we are seeing over here, whether it's generations or globally or whatever you do, and that is what we all know how to do. And I think even though we don't realize it, that is one of the places where we can be successful, and I'd love to be part of such a team and contribute.
And what about Algae? Well, tried and tested organization with a long history with our beloved school, right? For I think 70 years or so.
Yeah.
What do you think of concepts like this?
No, I'm quite happy to get involved in such a thing. We need to, if we can raise a fund, same for OL fund, and if Samir can manage it for us.
He's next. Why not? Why not?
Three.
I mean, how many billion was that, Samir?
I only need 10 billion. 10.
Yeah,
roughly the turnover of the group. Yeah, sure.
Okay, and Samir, since I started off with you, what do you think? Because I elaborated a little bit more on this in the past. What do you think of a concept like this, and will it work?
I think it will certainly work. And Rohan, you and I have shared some back channel. The University of Chicago has a program that they've been doing for decades now, and we can mimic. We can come up with what works for the Lawrencians. I don't think we should try it, because if we don't try it, we won't know whether it'll succeed or not.
And we're entrepreneurs anyway, so right, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
I mean, I have nothing.
Absolutely.
To lose. It's a little bit of time. I would love to give back to Lovedale.
Thank you so much. And of course, we've got this never give in, right? I think that's the backbone of a lot that we do. And now we're coming to the end of our session. I think, we've held you fine folks for over 2 hours now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Arjun, for moderating the session and your funny jokes and, keeping the pace. 2 hours has gone so quick. We had a great session, everybody. And I just like to, the couple of housekeeping things, 14th of November is OL Assembly, and the 24th of November is OL Nation. We hope to have a teaser for you out in a week or so. Thank you once again. Please, to everyone watching, some of the guys are happy to take questions, so please leave it on your chat, in the chat comments, and we will reply to you. Okay? Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.